When it comes to the success of your online business, what matters more, quantity or quality? Hello, I'm Shane Malach from ActiveGrowth, and maybe you're thinking, well, it's always quality, right? Whenever someone asks what's better, quality or quantity, it's always quality. But when it comes to online marketing, the answer is not that clear cut. Sure, on the one hand, you've got experts and case studies that say quality is better. For example, Ramit, incredibly successful and smart entrepreneur. He has this example where he spent 1.5 hours writing a quick blog post, got a pretty poor result, then spent 18 hours investing a lot of time researching, writing this epic post, and got a result that is much greater than 18 times better than his short, simple blog post. So the payoff was disproportionate to how much time he spent. But on the other hand, you've got entrepreneurs like Gary Vaynerchuk, also incredibly successful, definitely knows what he's talking about. And he is on the opposite end of the spectrum. He's always talking about the hustle, about putting out content all the time.
I create an obnoxious amount of content. You need to make something. You've got to start documenting instead of creating.
Videos, blog posts, images, quotes, be everywhere all the time, spread a wide net. And if you look at the content they create, Ramit, often if you see a video of him, it's very, very professionally set and lit, and you can see this really high production quality. Whereas with Gary, more often than not, he's just like walking along the street, recording himself, you know, a quick video on his phone while he's on the way to do something else. So here we've got two experts, both of them hugely successful, clearly know what they're doing, but they're advocating the opposite thing. And we could keep going. For example, we've got Neil Patel, who found that the more he publishes on the blog, the more traffic he gets, almost no matter what. Or on the other hand, we've got Derek Halpern from Social Triggers, who talks a lot about how important it is to create fewer but greater pieces of content and then spend a lot of time promoting them. So if you want content marketing success, if you want to create great content, great products, do great marketing, which side should you be on? Whose advice should you follow? Is there a right answer? Yes, there is a right answer, but only if you ask the right question. And which of these approaches is better is not the right question. The right question to ask is, where should you start? And the answer is, you need to Gary Vaynerchuk it. There is no question about that. This is how you need to start. Before you can create great stuff, you got to get comfortable with creating stuff and creating simple stuff quickly. Look, what if I told you that I want to write a book, I want to write a great best-selling novel, and I've never written anything before, never published a piece of writing, never done any writing apart from what I had to do in school. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my epic best-selling novel. I'm going to start by writing chapter 1. Makes sense, right? Well, as you can tell, my chances of success here would be very poor indeed. And a much better approach would be to start with just writing some stuff, right? Maybe the first thing I should ever write shouldn't be an attempt at a best-selling novel. Maybe I should even just write a journal. Maybe I should write some short stories. Maybe I should write some blog posts. Maybe I should do some writing that gets me used to the craft of writing, right? If I publish 100 short stories, I will gain experience in storytelling, in the craft of writing, in the craft of developing and explaining characters, creating story arcs, all of this stuff. And if I've done that often enough, then I start writing my novel. Chances are I'm going to end up with an actual novel. And this is a really important point, because if you try and start by creating the most epic post you've ever seen, the most amazing, most professionally made video you've ever seen, you will not end up with a post or a video at all. The most common thing that happens is that simply nothing happens, right? You get stuck in perfectionism and you keep making excuses. And this is the thing. You have to start producing, and you have to get used to producing. You have to get used to and comfortable with the basics of producing content. And to do that, you have to make You have to make everything but more excuses. So stop telling yourself, oh, but this isn't good enough yet, and I don't have anything to say yet, or I have no right to publish content, whatever. I need to do more, learn more, be better, and so on. No, just start putting out content. See, if we take an example of a video like this one. So this isn't a super sophisticated setup, but even a shot like this, kind of a professional looking shot, there's quite a lot that goes into this. It's quite a lot in terms of, the setup, the lighting, the technology of all the stuff you need and the skills you need to basically edit this to make it look like this. And all of these things are going to be a huge and anxiety-inducing distraction if you haven't covered the basics yet. And the basics are, you got to get used to and comfortable with standing in front of a camera and talking to the camera, kind of organizing your thoughts, being able to speak several sentences in a row without needing to edit all the time, without having to have cuts in there all the time. All of these basics need to be sorted before you should even start thinking about, better equipment, better setting, whatever, chroma key, white background, stuff like that. All of that stuff is just going to be a needless distraction if you don't have the basics yet. And the way to get comfortable with these basics is definitely through quantity without getting distracted by quality. If you're always thinking, you can spend so much time on a single video, if you try to make the first video great, or on a single blog post, that the amount of experience you gain is just approaching zero. So to get comfortable with the basics, to start approaching greatness, do simple things in large quantities. Another analogy I like to use here is lifting weights. If you want to lift a really heavy weight, the way to do it isn't to walk up to a super heavy weight and try very hard. Because what's going to happen? You're going to fail. You're not going to be able to lift that weight. What you need to do is you need to start small. You need to start lifting something now that is not too light, but not too heavy, something you can lift that challenges you. And you need to keep doing that, lifting a little more weight next time, a little more weight next time, and so on, until you manage to lift that heavy weight. You have to approach it gradually, and in fact, this is the point of my video. That is the only way to do it. You are never going to do a world record deadlift or whatever by starting at world record weights. It simply doesn't work. So here's my question to you. What is the most content you've ever published in 1 week? What I mean is, how many pieces of content, whatever that is, whether it's blog posts or videos, or even like lessons in an online course or something like that, chapters in a book, whatever. What is the most pieces of content, quantity, that you've ever published in 1 week? What's the largest number of content pieces that you've ever published in 1 day? That's what I'd like to hear from you. So leave a comment below letting me know what it is. And that is what I encourage you to pay attention to. Get that number up. Work on increasing that metric before you worry about quality.